This morning is Vision Sunday, and I have to tell you there's a fair amount of apprehension I carry about this day. And the reason is because we have a lot of information to share with you, and I don't want you to feel like it's just numbers. I also don't want it to feel like it's bragging. In our world, there doesn't seem to be a shortage of people who want to take credit for things that are done. But I also think that part of a spiritual integrity is gratitude, to be able to express our thanks to God for what He is doing in our church family. And so today, I feel the tension of both of those things. How do we express gratitude for what God has done without making it sound as though that we are bragging? And here's the verse that I think helps us do this. And it's from Psalm 115, and this is what it says. Not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name goes all the glory for your unfailing love and faithfulness. How many are grateful for the unfailing love and faithfulness of God? Amen? Yeah. So you're going to hear a lot of data today, and I don't want you to think of it in terms of numbers. I want you to think of it in terms of names. Because every single thing that we talk about that has a number associated with it has a name attached with it too. And there are people who, they are taking steps forward in their faith. They are finding new ways to experience freedom. They are taking steps of growth and connecting with others. And so every single number that we talk about today is not just a number. It's never just a number when it comes to God's house. Now we count things. We count attendance, we count giving, we count small groups, but once again, these are not metrics that we determine our success by, and it's not corporate. Every single one of those numbers has a story that goes with it. There are people who show up here on a Sunday. By the way, on your seat, there was a little booklet that looks like this. All the information that I'm talking about today is in here. When I refer to something, they'll put the page number on the screen so that you can find it easy if you want to follow along. And I can't get to everything that's in here, so this would be a great way for you to go home and take this with you and look at some of the things that are happening in our church family. People come, contrary to popular opinion in our culture, that somehow church has become irrelevant. What we're seeing is that the opposite is true, that people are coming to realize the value of being part of a faith community, that it's not just something that we see online and like, but it's something that we connect with in person. I know it's not always possible in person, but when we can, we do, because it makes a difference, because people go through real struggles in life. We don't assume that everybody who showed up here today has life all figured out and everything's going wonderful for them. What we do know is that sometimes people come and they're going through great struggles. Sometimes they're experiencing a lot of confusion in decisions that they're going to have to make. Sometimes they're experiencing physical, emotional, spiritual pain. Aren't you glad that there's a place that people can come even when you don't feel up to it, because being in the environment actually helps us take a step forward? Does that sound like a good idea? I think it does. 48 people this last year decided that being part of the collection of believers is not enough. They wanted a connection, and so they wanted to become to a part of our church family. Not only believing, but also belonging, and we think both of those things are very important. 42 people this last year entered the waters of baptism. How many think that's really cool? Yeah? And in case you're wondering, the water baptismal that we have up here, we try to keep that temperature right around 98 degrees because we are not into polar plunges around here. That's how that works. Just a couple Sundays ago, I was actually baptizing 4 young men between the ages of 14 and 17 on the very day that we were talking about Daniel and his friends who are between the ages of 14 and 17. And we watched together and listened to them share not only their story of faith, but their commitment to Christ. I can't think of a more impressive thing to see on any given day when we get together. 15 people. This will sound impossible to you. 15 people signed up for a small group, not because they believe, but because They're not sure if they believe or not, and they want to sort it out and figure it out. And what I can tell you is when people step up and exercise that kind of courage, that becomes very sacred ground, holy ground for people to gather. And a lot of our baptisms came right out of that group. How many think that's really cool? That's amazing, yeah. We have a thing called Pretzels with the Pastors, and it's a thing that we do usually the first Sunday of the month, and it's between services, and people who are relatively new get to be introduced to our pastoral team, as well as to ask questions about things that they're interested in. And 125 people either stayed late or came early to participate in that. We thought that was really cool. And we count donuts and bagels around here. If you're looking in your booklet, it's over 40,000 donuts and bagels were consumed. Why do you count them? And it's not because we care about the carbs. We count them because it represents and reflects people hanging around for a few minutes and having a casual conversation. And what I can tell you is, from heaven's point of view, those casual conversations are spiritual too. That friendships can be formed and burdens can be shared and people can speak words of encouragement to each other. That everything that happens in this place doesn't happen from this spot towards everyone else, but it's a church family interacting with each other. And then we have digital ministry, because we actually believe that social media can be an effective tool, not as a replacement to gathering together, but to help us be able to maybe answer some questions that people have, to encourage, to explain things, to call to prayer. Over 1,250 prayer requests were sent in on social media this year, and more people than that prayed for them. I'm so grateful we have people that are part of our church family who consider it part of their spiritual gift to take those requests and bring them before God and ask for his help. There's only so much time that we have on a Sunday. I'm on a timer. According to this, I've got 17 minutes and 57 seconds left. And now I have 17 minutes and 51 seconds left. And there's just so much that we can't get through in a Sunday, but in a podcast form, we can actually take a little bit longer. And we try to answer and tackle very tough questions, because people go through brutal realities in their life. And it's not possible to answer everything here, but it's possible to go into more depth there. So if you're not a subscriber, I hope you would consider that. We also have something that we think is very important, and that is financial accountability. That if we're not transparent with what you've trusted us with, then at the end of the day, whatever the reasons are for that lack of transparency builds a lack of trust. And so we have some information we want to share with you about the finances. You can watch the video, and then I'll have a couple things to say after that.
Church family, I am filled with gratitude as I share with you the incredible story of what God has done through your faithfulness this year. Your generosity has fueled a healthy church that is helping change the lives of so many right here in Rochester and all across the world. Now, transparency is absolutely essential for us. Trust, we believe, is our greatest currency. So I want to share where and how money was given and how it was used throughout 2024. So first, let's look at the incomes. You gave to our adoption fund, benevolence, world missions, building fund, appreciating our pastors. We had rental income, a significant amount of interest earned, and our tithes and offerings, which saw a 10.7% increase from 2023. Thank you for your incredible generosity. Now, let's talk about how these resources were expensed. First, you helped 2 couples welcome children into their homes through our adoption assistance ministry. And it's honestly so powerful to think of longing parents now tucking their kids in every single night. Additionally, we were able to help so many people in need through our benevolence fund. We provided clothing for Churchville kids who needed it throughout the year. We provided Thanksgiving baskets to over 40 families. And we gave backpacks and school supplies for School 25 downtown. Not only that, but we were able to bless many with food, clothing, counseling, and home repairs. Your generosity helps us bless the homeless, the refugees, the orphans, and those who fall into financial hardships. Now, onto our missionaries who are our global partners. We support 37 different missionaries monthly, helping end injustices like human trafficking and help to spread the gospel throughout the world. Not only that, together, we've made remarkable strides in financial stewardship, reducing our mortgage by over $300,000 this year. $150,000 of that was in additional payments to accelerate our goal to be debt-free in 2030. We spent nearly $400,000 on ministry expenses, which helps us serve all our kids and our teens and our adults and conferences. It includes all of it in there. Now, our payroll expense includes 23 employees' salaries, their benefits, appreciation, retirement, and payroll taxes and fees. The leadership of our church does an amazing job serving our community. And we all just want to say thank you for your generosity that allows our team to invest our best efforts to expand the kingdom. And finally, we have our office expenses to share the word through things like print resources. And of course, these numbers can be overwhelming when they're all coming so fast in a video like this. So you can always view them at ourcalvary.org/AIR. And if you've got questions, Pastor Bob, Phil Lepore, our business administrator, or myself would love to chat with you. Like I said, we believe in transparency and trust, and we're happy to have a conversation. So let me just close in saying thank you. Having a growing church in Western New York is not normal. Having over 200 children to come every single weekend to grow their faith isn't normal. Having teens passionate about worshiping Jesus is completely countercultural. And having adults who engage in real conversations about their faith, about their struggles, about Jesus, none of this is typical, but all of it is vital. And none of this would exist without the regular sacrifices that you make. So, thank you for your investment into the kingdom in 2024. And we look forward to what God has in store for us this year as we continue to trust in Him. Thank you.
Yeah. A couple of things. You probably noticed that we expensed a lot more in benevolence and in missions than we received, and we don't consider that a reason to be alarmed. We take funds from our general fund and also help out with benevolence and with our global partners because we think it's perfectly reasonable for us to do what we are asking others to do. What I can tell you is that every single month I get requests for worthwhile and worthy global partners who are doing amazing things in the name of Jesus around the world. And they would love for us to be able to support them. Every time you give something to global missions, what I can tell you is that every dime of it goes where you have requested that to go. We don't keep anything back for administrative fees. And even though we give more than, every time someone gives towards that, what we're able to do is even more. Because how many think the work is not done yet, right? We still have a lot to do. We have a lot to do. You probably noticed there was a very, very big number for payroll. It exceeded $800,000. What you need to know is that includes everything, payroll taxes. Some people think that churches are completely tax exempt. We're tax exempt for sales tax and property tax. We're not exempt from payroll taxes. So all of that is rolled into that, and that reflects less than 40% of our annual income, which for a church our size is actually a remarkable thing. You might wonder what the salary breakouts are, and what I would tell you is that we don't disclose individual salaries at Calvary Assembly because the people who are on staff here certainly have a right to privacy as to their income as you do regarding yours. However, what I can tell you is every single year I do this, I bring my W-2. and leave it on the front. There's a little table right up front here, and you can see exactly what I make as lead pastor of Calvary Assembly. And I always encourage people, you're more than welcome to look at that. If you have any concerns, you're more than welcome to share that with our church council, and they will take you very seriously. I have blacked out my social security number, and I have blurred my home address. And I ask that you not take pictures of it and post it online. All right, does that make sense? I don't want my identity to be something other than it is. All right. Also in 2020, we moved into this expanded facility, and what I can tell you is we did that during COVID. We had over $1 million that was pledged towards the expansion, but COVID hit, and we weren't sure what was going to happen financially. Nobody knew. And what I can tell you is over 95% of everything that was pledged came in. How many think that's remarkable? That is truly remarkable. It is. We also had money that we had already saved, $500,000 that we had saved to go towards that project, and we borrowed $2.56 million on top of that. And what I can tell you is, as of today, we owe less than $1.3 million on that debt. And you saw in the video, by 2030, it is our intention to be debt-free. How many think that's a pretty good thing? Yeah. So that's what we have given, and that's where it has gone. But of course, it doesn't answer the why question. Why do we receive contributions every single week? Why do we process all the ministries that we do? And it's because that we are not changed, and our world is not changed by what we hold on to. Everything we hold on to only makes us more of what we are. What we let go of is what brings change to us and to those around us. That's why God, who so loved the world, gave. He changed our world by giving his son, and we change our world by giving of our time, our talent, and our treasures. As good as our staff is, we are not able to facilitate all of the ministry that happens around here. That's why 610 of you signed up and are an active volunteer at Calvary Assembly. Can we just thank the 610 people? Yeah. In case you're wondering, that reflects a much higher percentage than you typically see in organizations. And what that reflects is the work that God is doing in people's hearts. We don't just come to consume, we come to contribute. And it's not just finances, but it's also our talents and our skills. It takes 129 volunteers every single Sunday to make this place work and run well. And I'm so grateful for every single one of those volunteers who show up every single week and serve everyone who comes through these doors as though they were a guest of Jesus. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. Once again, our world is not going to be changed by power grabs or by protecting our calendar tightly. It's changed when we make a difference by showing up and by serving. You saw something about our global partners there. There are 37 ministries that we work with and support. They help people recover from addiction. They plant churches. They support refugees. They send and share good news in places that we would prefer not to go, and quite honestly, that our culture tells us we should be afraid of or we should hate. And the question is, why did they do that? And the answer is because they don't think and we don't believe that anybody should be left out of the good news. That regardless of your geography, your education, your ethnicity, no matter where you are, no matter how much you make, no matter how much you know, that every single person has a right to the grace of God. And we are committed as much as we possibly can to do that. That's why we want to do it. You probably noticed too, $231,000 went out from our church family last year. That's over $250,000 just given away. We didn't use any of that here. $231,000, missions, benevolence, $47,000 of that went out to adoption. And there was one adoption that we were helping with, and it was the most heartbreaking thing. I called the family, and their adoption was costing over $90,000, and they had raised as much as they could. They had borrowed as much as they could. They just were at the end of the road. They heard about our adoption ministry support, and they sent in an application. And we were able to cover the remaining amount of their adoption. And I called them on the phone while they were in the hospital ready to receive their baby. And I said, I can tell you that we can cover that cost. And I mean, you could just hear the tears of joy. And they hung up the phone. And when they hung up the phone, the person who came in the room told them that the adoption was off. Their heart was absolutely broken. And they called me back. And I had no words to say. And I couldn't believe that this had happened. And it's one of those things where the mom decided to keep the baby, and you can't be frustrated about that, right? It's not a bad thing. And so we were just heartbroken for them. That happened in late summer. When December rolled around, I got another call from them, and the mom had changed her mind. And she wanted that couple to take the baby. But the baby also had an older brother who was 8 years old, and she wanted them to take the brother too, which of course was some additional expense for adoption. And so when she called, I said we would be honored to be able to cover the cost of that adoption too. And so 2 kids went into one home after it looked like nobody was going anywhere. Isn't that fantastic? I think that's a great, great story. So 3 kids. The other one, I wish I had more time. The other one is a child who was orphaned in Ukraine. And they were able to get him out as military was moving in, because if you haven't heard, the military from Russia often takes children and take them back into Russia. And they were able to get him out into Poland, and from Poland that he was able to find a way to the United States, and there's a family here who wanted to adopt him. And so when we found out what the expense was for that, we were able to step in and help out. And so there's a child who is sleeping safe and sound in a bed not far from here, Spencerport, New York. How many are grateful that God cares about the children too, right? He does. You provided 43 families with a Thanksgiving meal that they would not have had, over 200 Christmas gifts to children who do not attend our church. There are people who show up to tutor and to mentor every single week throughout the school years. There's 2 teams that help act as good neighbors towards refugees that have found themselves in Rochester, New York. 58 volunteers sign up to help the homeless. They help serve them meals. They actually take them out for coffee to get to know them a little bit better. And the question is why? Why do we do all these things? Because Jesus called us to be good neighbors. That's why. He didn't just call us to pay attention and pray. We're supposed to do that, but we can do more than that. Also with our groups, what I can tell you is over 360 of you have decided that sitting in rows is not sufficient, and you want to help your spirituality grow deeper, not just by hearing more, but by having conversations with people about it too. And so 360 of you are part of groups. Why? Because faith goes deeper and wider when we have conversations about it. Over 25 people every single Sunday are part of our deaf community. Rochester has the 2nd largest per capita deaf population of any city in our country. And I'm so grateful that we have over 25 people who show up every single week, and they get to hear the gospel in a language that they understand. Our kids, you wouldn't believe how many kids we have around here. The highest number that we had in 2024 was 260 children. 260 children. That means we need 590 adults. No, it doesn't, but it feels like we do, right? But this is, on average, last year, 185 every single Sunday. And why? Because we don't think of them as they will be the church tomorrow. We consider them as part of the church today. And our students, over 100 of them, carve time out of a weekend to go and spend a weekend retreat with each other and with spiritual leaders, and to spend time in prayer and in studying God's word, because they want their faith to grow deeper. Why? Because they're building confidence in something that cannot be done by small screens in social media. It can only be done by the Spirit of the living God. And we're so grateful for their participation in all of that. Young adults, over 50 young adults get together. 9 of the colleges in the Rochester area are regular participants in our Sunday worship service. How many are glad that kids come in from our colleges and they participate in our church family? Isn't that great news? Yeah. I tell them, when you come, our IQ goes up, and I just absolutely love that. Why do they do that? Because they are taking their spiritual life as seriously as they take their studies. Some of them are taking their spiritual life more seriously than they take their studies. Young at heart, these are people who've lived for a while and know what the word loss actually means. And it would be easy to decide I don't want to bring more people in my life because they know what that feels like. But they decide every single month to gather together, and there's a multitude of these folks who get together, and they've decided that it's never too late to add a friend or to experience joy in their lives. Why have they decided this? Because there is no mandatory retirement age when it comes to spirituality. That's why. Worship, if you don't know, some of the music that we sing on Sundays is actually created here. People on our worship team actually write music, and it's so good you can't tell the difference. In fact, that's one of the questions I get all the time. Is that one of ours? They created 2 albums now, over 54,000 times. The music from those albums have been streamed and downloaded so that people can participate in worship outside of this room. I think that's absolutely amazing. In case you think that all this good news comes without challenges, I can tell you that that would not be true. Anytime people get together, there's challenges, and we're not exempt from that just because we have a spiritual goal. And one of the challenges that we're experiencing these days is that we have less seats. We have less space. We've actually had some Sundays where our parking lot was full, and I didn't think that was possible. I'm secretly wondering if some people aren't driving 2 cars. This is what you should know. In 27 years, we've never set an attendance goal, and we've never tried to break an attendance record. We just simply made a promise to God that we will not break. Whoever you bring to this place, we will try to serve them as best as we possibly can because we think you love them. And so that's been our commitment. And over the years, God just keeps bringing more and more people to be part of this place. And so on Easter Sunday, we're going to launch a 3rd service so that we have even more space and more seats and more parking for people that God is bringing to this house. That would be a really good place. Why? Because we want to welcome people. There's decreasing amounts of places where people feel welcome in our culture. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to be a good friend. We want to stand at the door, not to guard it, but to open it and let people know that they are welcome and God's grace is available. I'm going to ask the worship team to come out. Next week, we're actually going to ask you to help with a survey on the 3rd service option as to what time is going to be best for a good distribution for people who will be participating, because if we create bad times and we make a service even worse in attendance, that doesn't help anyone. So we're asking for you to help us with that. In our world, we're basically taught that things are more precious because they are more scarce. There's sand everywhere, there's rocks everywhere, there's not gold everywhere. And so gold is precious. There's all kinds of things laying around, but not diamonds. You don't see those laying on the ground, but it's not the case with God's grace. There's no shortage, there's no scarcity of God's grace. If we could see it, it would be like an ocean that covers the entire world. But the challenge is that not everybody knows that yet. And that is why we are here. And we will never apologize for that. People desperately need to know that God is with them and God is for them. And how many think there need to be places where people can hear that over and over and over again until it sinks in? That's why we're here. No one needs to think this is a great church, and that's not what we're trying to get a reputation for. I want people to know that there is a great God, and I'm not in this to make a name for myself. If nobody remembers my name, I'm perfectly okay with that. But I do want them to know the name that is above every name, and that is the name of Jesus. And if they know his name, it's amazing what else can change in their lives. Amen? So Psalm 115, not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name goes all the glory for your unfailing love and faithfulness. Would you stand with me this morning, and can we say thank you to what God is doing in this house one more time? Let's just give him praise for it this morning.